15 years ago, a boy accidentally killed his playmate. To avoid being discovered, he pushed the body into a crevice in the rocks. The next day, the police launched an investigation into Remy's disappearance, and the residents of the small town all volunteered to help search. Nick quietly hid behind the crowd, observing. As people got closer and closer to the crevice, Nick's breathing became rapid. Suddenly, a police officer announced that the search would be suspended due to the approaching darkness and would continue the next day. However, that very night, the small town was hit by a severe storm, causing flash floods and mudslides. The next day, the town was left in ruins, and the entire forest was destroyed. This meant that no one would go back in to search for Remy. 15 years later, Nick became a well-known doctor in the small town. He thought the incident would never be brought up again. However, as the government began to develop the forest, Nick realized that Remy's body could be discovered at any time. He quietly snuck into the forest and found the crevice, but before he could retrieve the body, he heard a construction vehicle approaching. Nick had no choice but to flee temporarily. The next day, what Nick feared most happened. A worker discovered Remy's body, and according to the autopsy results, he had been murdered. The police also extracted a hair that didn't belong to the deceased. Once the DNA was matched, the killer could be caught. However, there were no DNA records for the people in the small town, so the file could only be temporarily stored. This meant that as long as Nick didn't undergo a DNA test, he wouldn't be discovered. However, one day, his girlfriend told him that she was pregnant. Nick believed it couldn't be his, so the woman proposed to have a DNA test. To avoid being discovered by the police, he had no choice but to marry his girlfriend. Since his girlfriend was Remy's sister, Nick had to face Remy's parents after the wedding. Fear and guilt would accompany him for the rest of his life.